Hey, a big welcome into my home here, and welcome to Breaking the Huddle. We had some great college football. Now we get to talk about it, and I can't wait. I'm Joel Klatt, and as always, this show is brought to you by Dr. Pepper. Remember, it is the official drink of Fansville. We got a lot to get into, okay? First of all, as always, I'm going to break down my top 10 teams in the country that are currently playing. Sorry, Big Ten. Sorry, Pac-12. You're not included for right now. There was some movement, and I've got some thoughts in particular on the Big 12. I'll share those with you in just a moment. We're going to have Bruce Feldman in to give us all the lowdown on what's actually happening right now in the Big Ten to see if and when we could see an announcement, hear an announcement about the potential for fall football in Big Ten country. I've got to break down Spencer Rattler for you. Spencer Rattler, the redshirt freshman quarterback at Oklahoma. I've got a breakdown of what makes him so different than what we've seen previously at OU and why their offense may look a little bit different and maybe even a bit more explosive. And of course, we're going to get to your tweets and all your feedback and a little clap back. That's coming up at the end of the show. But first, let's get into the top 10 as I see them right now. And here we go. The top 10 teams. I start with Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State we haven't seen yet, but I'm eager to see them. Notre Dame, not bad, but not great. Then we get into some of that SEC, Auburn, LSU. Can't wait to see them. Texas, I know I have them ranked higher than most people want. Georgia, Florida, Oklahoma jumps up to number 3. And then, of course, Clemson and Alabama right now, kind of the class of at least the current teams playing. And we'll see if Ohio State can jump up into that mix, depending on what the Big Ten decides to do. That being said, Oklahoma did make a bit of a jump for me. They jumped up from number 4 to number 3 after I saw them play. And I had a lot of questions about Oklahoma, but it wasn't really Oklahoma that I wanted to talk about right now. It is their conference. Hey, everybody. The Big 12 is dead conversation. Please just relax, okay? It's 1 week of college football, and this stuff absolutely happens. It happens. So the whole Sun Belt is better than the entire Big 12 or the Big 12 is dead, just pump your brakes. I've got 3 reasons why everybody out there just needs to slow down and let the season play out, in particular in Big 12 country. Let me start with reason number 1. Louisiana, the Ragin' Cajuns led by Bill Napier, Arkansas State, those are good football teams. Blake Anderson's got something real at Arkansas State. I was there in Manhattan, Kansas, and watched them beat Kansas State. All right. Their wide receiver, Jay Adams, is an NFL talent. This is a program that has 9 straight winning seasons. They've won a bunch of Sun Belt Conference championships over the course of the years. They've been in bowl games. They've done it all, and that's a good program. And they've got some really good players. And they came in and they beat a Kansas State team that didn't have the offseason, no spring practices, compared to Arkansas State had about 7 spring practices. They had to replace their entire offensive line and all their defensive tackles, and they got beat. It happens. Meanwhile, Louisiana Lafayette, Louisiana led by Bill Napier, goes up there. That's a team that was really, really good last year. Remember, this is an 11-3 football team coming back, and they went up there and beat Iowa State. They had good special teams play. They won the turnover battle. Guess what happens when a good team does that? They win the football game. Let's stop with the whole Big 12 is dead. And everyone's like, well, Coastal Carolina beat Kansas. It's Kansas. Like, relax. When Vandy gets beat by somebody or Illinois gets beat by somebody, you don't say that the SEC or the Big Ten are absolutely dead and buried, do you? No, you don't. Because that brings me to my number 2 point. We rate conferences about what they do at the top. So let's not get all bent out of shape about what happened with Iowa State and Kansas State and Kansas when we know that the Big 12's strength sits within Oklahoma, Texas, and probably Oklahoma State. We haven't seen the Cowboys yet. I'm excited to see them play. And the other 2 big boys, Oklahoma and Texas, they looked amazing. Now, albeit, they didn't play anybody. Well, fine. Whatever you want to say about that, but guess what? They did exactly what they should do. The games were over at kickoff. Spencer Rattler and Sam Ehlinger looked unbelievable. Those 2 guys look like they're going to put together Heisman campaigns. Nothing new for Oklahoma. Their quarterback is always in the Heisman race. Sam Ehlinger, maybe this is the year that he gets into the Heisman race after a long storied, at least in my estimation, career at the University of Texas. Those 2 teams are really good. And guess what? We're going to rate the conference based on what they are at the top. If you don't believe me, look at the ACC. That conference is absolutely weak. I don't want to say trash because I don't want to be hyperbolic, okay? I don't want to do that. But I will say that it's not a strong conference. But guess what? Nobody says anything. Why? Because Clemson's there. They're sitting there as one of the premier college football programs in the country. So we just don't talk about the rest of the ACC. It doesn't matter that Clemson beat the rest of the ACC by 31 points a game last year. The only one possession game that they had in conference was North Carolina. North Carolina didn't look great last weekend. So that was my number 2 point. We rate conferences based on what they are at the top. And number 3, this stuff happens. Why all of a sudden are we shocked when we see a group of 5 team beat a Power 5 team? This happens every single year. In fact, let me just list off what we saw a year ago. Hey, ACC, remember when Boise State beat Florida State last year? Or when App State beat North Carolina? Because I remember that. Hey, SEC, remember when Georgia State beat Tennessee? Same Tennessee team that we think is going to be ranked this year, and I'm very high on, by the way. But remember when Georgia State beat them? Yeah, I remember that. Remember when Wyoming went in and beat Missouri, SEC? Oh, that's right. Was the SEC dead at that point? I don't think so. Hey, Big Ten, remember when Eastern Michigan beat Illinois? I remember that. Remember when Nevada beat Purdue? I remember that. Hey, Pac-12, remember the several losses you took to the group of 5 last year? San Diego State over UCLA, Air Force over Colorado, Hawaii beat both Arizona and Oregon State, San Jose State beat Arkansas. Huh, SEC, where were you at then? All I'm trying to say, I'm not trying to do anything other than prove a point. We don't rate conferences based on what's happening in the middle. These types of games happen. We rate conferences about what's happening on top. So look at Oklahoma, look at Texas, and just remember, in the Sun Belt, Louisiana and Arkansas State are both really good football teams. They should be right up there, the cream of the crop when it comes to the Sun Belt team, and maybe we're going to see them in a New Year's Six bowl game, depending on what happens in the postseason. So there you have it. Big 12 country, just relax. You're going to be just fine. Speaking of relaxing or maybe not relaxing, those of you that are fans of Ohio State, maybe Michigan, any other Big Ten team, you're wondering when you're going to play. Let's hope we have some answers soon to shed light on what's coming up. And with us now, one of the best insiders in all of college football, man, I trust more than anybody else in the sport. His name is Bruce Feldman. Bruce, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Doing well, Joel. Interesting times we're in right now.
You could say that again. And everybody, I walk outside my house. People ask me about the Big Ten. I go to the grocery store. People ask me about the Big Ten. I'm sure it's the same for you. So I guess I'll just be like everybody else. Where do we stand right now with the Big Ten, the potential that we may see an announcement about a fall season of college football?
Right. As we were talking about on Big Noon on Saturday, that there was a lot of optimism in the conference, and some of the meetings that were scheduled to happened, presentations happened at the along with the Big Ten Return to Competition Task Force. So I think there's a lot of folks now that feel like there are certain things on the medical side of it that they feel more comfortable with than they did probably 5-6 weeks ago. But having said that, there are some concerns. At least Wisconsin has some cases in the athletic program. Certainly Maryland has had issues with it. It's messy when you're talking about how does this kind of message play out. One of the things that I had heard early this week was, what does it mean in terms of having confidence in a daily testing plan that they feel like they can procure? Is that the first step that happens before they can announce or before they bring it to a vote? That's the challenge. And I think one of the things that's really hard to get a real handle on is predicting what conference and university presidents are going to decide when it comes down to taking a vote.
Yeah. And, I made this analogy. We talked on the phone over the weekend, and I made this analogy. People are asking me like, well, what's taking them so long? And I brought up the analogy, well, look at Congress. No one's going to bring a bill to the floor of, let's say, the House if they don't feel like they have the votes to get it passed. So to some degree, and I haven't heard this, from any sources, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking to myself, have we not heard any news from the Big Ten because they're nervous about whether they would actually get a season passed if they actually brought it to a vote? Do you think that might be playing a bit of a role here?
I think, Joel, it's really the issue is consensus. Now they need to get to nine votes, but from the people I've talked to, they felt like it was going to be kind of an all or nothing scenario where if everybody didn't feel comfortable moving forward, they weren't going to make that determination as a conference. So it's hard to put your finger on. we've seen some presidents speak out. We've seen the Rutgers president speak out. We saw the chancellor from Wisconsin talk about, really in a little bit more detail than Kevin Warren certainly went in August, about here are the reasons why we postponed in the fall. So how much more confidence do they have? How much more comfortable do they feel with some of the medical protocols? I do feel like, from talking to people, that they feel more confident with the myocarditis, the heart issue piece of it. The question, I think, the biggest one is, how comfortable are they with the partners that they potentially would get into with the daily testing piece of that? Because when they start, and again, this is something we talked about in our reporting maybe 2 weeks ago, about the prospect of them coming back at that point as early as around Thanksgiving. Well, the timing there was, all right, the rest of the regular students would have their finals. They'd be off campus. It's not a real bubble as the NBA or NHL or WNBA had, but it's more of a bubble than what they had, because one of the challenges that you hear from talking to coaches and ADs is, we were doing okay with this, and then the regular students came back, and it got bad. And I think that's the part where I think it's given a bunch of people pause as they sort through this decision process.
All right, last thing, and again, there's so much to get into, but this is where I'll kind of finish. We've seen some major opt-outs in the Big Ten, even as recently as the last few days. We see Wyatt Davis, a guard from Ohio State, Shaun Wade, a corner from Ohio State. We've seen Micah Parsons. He opted out earlier. If and when the Big Ten announces that they are going to have a fall football season, and let's say it is in October, which would maybe allow for a potential national championship run, can these guys get back and play and be eligible? What are the rules right now via the NCAA, and what are the things are they up against?
Yeah, great question. So here's what we've kind of kicked it around with some assistant ADs, some compliance people. From my understanding, at least at this point, and granted, we're on uncharted waters with the NCAA, but Arizona State had a punter enter the draft, go to the combine, and then decide as the COVID pandemic swept through the country, came back, got his eligibility restored. Well, a key part of that was that he had not accepted benefits. So if you sign with an agent but don't accept benefits, you probably have some more flexibility to come back. Now, if you sign with an agent and go, get a new car, go train somewhere where it's a high-end facility to get ready for the combine, I think those are things that compliance people are going to have a hard time working around. But if you didn't do those things, I think there is going to be some flexibility. I mean, we've already seen between the Arizona State punter, but there's a case right now at LSU. Neil Farrell, who's a solid defensive lineman, he opted out. His family had some people really struggling with illness. He went back to Alabama, and then about a month later, he said he felt like comfortable that he could leave home and come back to LSU, and they're going to see if he is eligible to play. Now, he's got to get himself in shape and kind of get back, because they're on the field on the 26th. This isn't a case like we're talking about with the Big Ten, where maybe at the earliest is probably a month from now.
Right.
This is an issue I think that a lot of people are going to be monitoring, just to see, okay, we've seen a bunch of guys opt out. Can they come back if they get the chance to actually play this fall?
Well, let's hope that we hear some good news and we get to see some of these young men out on the football field. Because last week, I got to tell you, it was amazing to go out there. I was at Kansas State, and seeing the level of excitement that both the Arkansas State players and the Kansas State players had to just go out there and participate in the sport was exciting, to say none the least. But Bruce, appreciate all your information, man, and let's hope we hear some good news here soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joel.
And now one of my favorite things to do, which is look at one of these talented young men and break down what makes them special. This week, it's going to be the redshirt freshman quarterback at Oklahoma, Spencer Rattler. Now, I'm high on Rattler partly because I've seen him practice, and I've been down in Norman and seen his talent, but also because of his coach, Lincoln Riley. It should be noted that Lincoln Riley right now is the best offensive coach in college football. It doesn't matter who he has, what strengths that player has. He makes an offense and tailors the offense to be successful, and not just successful, but explosive, top of college football explosive, and he tailors it to what his he deems the strength of his quarterbacks to be. One of the things that he always tells me is I'm always like, hey, well, how does this guy fit your system? And he says to me, if your system doesn't fit the player, then you need a new system. So if your system is not quarterback friendly, then you need a new offensive system. That's the MO for Lincoln Riley, and that's why he's so successful year in and year out, in particular, grooming quarterbacks. He had Baker Mayfield for 3 years, then he had Kyler Murray, then he had Jalen Hurts. I would argue that every one of those years was a little bit different. He had P. Ryan and Mixon. He's had it all. They've been great running the football. They've been great throwing the football. But this year, I'm excited. Why? I think that Rattler may have as good or better arm talent than any of these guys. And let me show you a couple of examples of what I mean. Let's go to the tape. This was right in the first series. Rattler is going to take off to his left. OU fans, last year that was a Jalen Hurts run almost 100% of the time. There was green grass. He could have run for a first down, but Rattler, watch him just calmly flip his hips and deliver a quick release to Jeremiah Hall. He didn't take the easy completion right in front of him. He goes all the way for the explosive completion, 24, 25 yards down the field. That's explosive passing game. Right here, this is amazing ball placement. Rattler has got Theo Weiss Jr. down the sidelines, but he's double covered. So rather than trying to lead him down the field, what does he do? He throws him open onto the sideline. That ball placement is unbelievable. And then this was one of the touchdowns in the first quarter. Just a quick flip of the wrist, and he throws it 52 yards in the air. Watch this. He sees the safety come down, and boom, he's right over the top right away. I understand that this was Missouri State, and I understand that this wasn't the greatest competition of all time. But folks, when I'm watching a guy play like that, he's making those throws look effortless. One of them, he's rolling to his left. He flips around and throws an explosive ball down the sidelines. Great ball placement to Jeremiah Hall. That's a really hard play to make, and he makes it look easy. The other, he's got great protection. Weiss is open but not wide open, and he throws him back towards the sidelines on the back shoulder, communicating with his ball placement, throwing him open. That's a graduate level throw, right? That's a big boy throw way down the field. And he does it with ease, with that good arm strength, quick release, good accuracy. And then the last one I showed you, folks, there's only a handful of people on the planet that can sit there and without a big kind of crow step or hitch step, just sit there and flip the ball 52 yards down the field with accuracy right in the middle of the game, just to give you some sense of how difficult that is. Last year, Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl threw that 50-plus yard ball down the field to Tyreek Hill. That was one of his longest completions of the entire season, because you just don't see quarterbacks throw the football that far down the field. And Rattler did it with ease. I'm so excited to watch this guy develop and continue to develop in Lincoln Riley's offense. That's why I think OU could be more explosive this year than last year, in particular in the passing game. Let's get to your feedback now as the fans chime in on my Twitter, at Joel Klatt, Instagram, Joel_Klatt. Send it in. The snarkier it is, the better, and you're probably going to make the show, so let's get to it. The snark level is still down a little bit. Everyone's trying to be nice. It's early in the season, but Steven Sanders with a Woody Wooderson avatar, real nice right there, says 3 things in life are for certain: death, taxes, and Joel Klatt overrating the Big 12 every year. Never change, Joel. Oh, listen, pal, I won't. I will not change. And by the way, I shouldn't. The top of the Big 12 is still really good. You all can laugh all you want about Texas. I still think Texas is really good this year, and I think I will be proven right in terms of that assessment. I wish that they could go play LSU just so that we could see the game, to see where they're at, in particular with what LSU is missing this year in their kind of, revamped opt-outs, new coordinators, all that different things. I wish Texas and LSU could play this year. I think OU is still really good. By the way, OU could have a better offense, probably will have a better offense, like I just showed you last segment, than they did a year ago. So there you go, Steven, I will never change. Next up, let's see. Clem, I believe, says LSU beat 7 of these top 10 last season. We'll do it again this season. I just disagree. You might be the only one. Only like LSU diehards believe that they're going to have a season exactly like they did a year ago. You don't have Joe Burrow. Okay. You don't have your coordinators. Jamar Chase opted out. Like, it's just not going to happen. You didn't have an off season. Like, sorry, listen, you had a great run last year. All right, let's not get greedy, LSU. You're a couple of years removed from being 10-3 every single year. So there you go. Hey, coming up this Saturday, Houston. This game came together out of thin air, and we're going to be there to cover it for Big Noon Saturday. Dana Holgerson and Houston visits Dave Aranda and Baylor. Gus and I will be there. Tune in 2 hours prior for Big Noon Kickoff. They'll get you all set for everything college football related. Let's hope we've got some good news surrounding the Big Ten. But that's going to do it right here. Remember, tune in on Saturday, and Gus and I will bring you that Baylor game live on Fox. Thank you for tuning in right here to Breaking the Huddle. Big thanks to Dr. Pepper. I'm Joel Klatt. Remember, Dr. Pepper is the official drink of Fansville.